Hi everybody. So today we're going to be talking about further subdivisions of the beat. So this entire chapter, this entire week is going to focus on rhythm. In the meantime, make sure that you're still practicing your scales. We'll do a little bit of that next time. Practicing your scales, practicing your intervals, making sure that you can still sight read and sing confidently. And we'll also be doing some rhythmic dictation later on this week, and we might introduce a pitch component into that as well. But in any case, this is out of the Rogers and Ottman chapter 10. So all my examples for this will be taken from that. I'll be assigning you some things from that to send in to me later on this week. But for right now, this is going to be kind of a general overview. There will be a little bit of practice built in, but this is kind of more of the theoretical underpinning for this week's material. Okay, so what do I mean by further subdivisions of the beat? Okay, we're going to talk about what that means in simple time and what that means in compound time. Okay, so let's start off with simple time. So we've already divided simple time. Okay, if we have just the beats, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we're going to say 4, 4, we've already divided that once. So we've done 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and we've also introduced ties into that, introduced dotted notes and so on, some light syncopation. So that's our divisions. Okay. We can take this another level, we can take this even further, and divide those divisions into subdivisions. So dividing every beat, instead of into 2, into 4, okay? So let's take a look at what that looks like on a graph for kind of a conceptualization of what these possibilities are, okay? So at the first level, you can see we've only got one beat. This is a single slice of a single beat, whether that is a beat in 4/8 or 3/4 or 2/2, it doesn't matter. Any simple time, this is a slice of a single beat. So that very first row, you can see where it's bolded. That is just the strike on the beat. There's no division of any kind. The middle level, the darker shading, that's what we've been doing already. So that's our eighth notes if we're in 4/4, for instance, or that would be 16th notes if we're in 4/8, or that would be eighth notes if we were, pardon me, quarter notes if we were in 2/2. Okay, but now we have another level, so we can take each of those halves of the beats and split them off further. Okay, so now before we would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? Now we can divide that further, and we use that using the syllables E and A. So 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and so on, okay? So and is still in the same place, but what we've done is we've filled the space in the middle, okay? Now, this is not what every subdivision looks like. This is just what the possibilities are. You could do rhythms like 1 and a 2 and a, or you could do 1E and 2E and 1E and 2E and so on, okay? So take a look at that further. Let's apply it to notation that we're more familiar with. So here we go. So here's what subdivisions look like in, say, 2/2, in, say, 2/4, or, say, in 2/8, okay? So if you look at the top left, you can see what it would look like in 2/4. We've got our beats, we've got our divisions, and our subdivisions, okay? So the first line would be 1, 2. The second line would be 1 and 2 and, okay? And then our third line is our new kind of rhythmic anomaly, subdivisions, 1E and a 2E and a, okay? So Rogers and Ottman provided us with some extra kind of common rhythmic patterns. So for instance, you can see 1 and a 2 and a, and you can see 1E and 2E and, like we talked about before. They also include dotted rhythms. Remember that a dotted rhythm adds half the value of the beat. We've seen them already where if we're in, say, 4/4, we would have a dotted quarter note, and then that would leave us with an extra eighth note. Okay, same thing can happen here, but now we can have dotted rhythms that are all within a beat. Okay, so notice that this dotted rhythm, the entire duration of these two notes fits within the same beat. So 1, a 2, a 1, a 2, a 1, a 2, and so on. Okay, what these other trees show you, so the one for 2/2 on the top right and the one for 2/8 on the bottom, are the exact same rhythms as that first one for 2/4. So the examples we're going to be doing today are primarily going to be 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, so on. But as I'll explain at the end, I encourage you to practice what these rhythms look like and get used to looking at them in other less common simple time signatures. Okay, so let's take a look at an example now. So here we go. This is 10.5. This is from chapter 10 in your book, so you have this one already. Let's take a look at this. So we don't start on beat 1. Okay, as you can see, we start on beat 4. Other than that, this is a pretty straightforward rhythm. Right off the bat, we have a dotted half note, which, as we know from before, is the duration of 3 quarter notes. It's like a half note, which is 2 plus 1, half its value. And then we've got our 16th notes, okay? And of course, I forgot to mention, perhaps it's obvious, but they're 16th notes because in a measure of 4/4, there's 16 16th notes in a measure of 4/4. 4 beats, 4 subdivisions, 4 times 4 is 16, okay? So let's take a look at this. How do we count this? I talked about this already before. We would definitely start on 4 and then 1. 2 and 3 would be within the duration of that dotted half note. And then we would have 4, E, and A. Okay? And then so on and so on and so on. Now, let's take a look at what the counting for this looks like. This should hypothetically be review. You're all musicians. I'm sure you've all seen 16th notes before. But in any case, here we go. So, 4, 1, 4, E, and A, 1. Okay? As you can see later on, we've got an 8th note and 2 16th notes. Okay, so that means that E syllable is subsumed under the duration of that 8th note. So instead of being 4 E and A, it becomes 4 and A. Okay, we've got 1 and, which we're used to, 2 E and. It's the inverse of the 4 and A rhythm. Okay, 3 and 4 E and. Okay. Pretty straightforward stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, but let's go ahead and do some other examples of this. So I've got 2 more up here. Pardon me, 3 more. 3 more up here. Okay, 1 and 2/4, 1 and 3/4, and another 1 and 2/4. Okay, so notice that the 2/4 example, 10.6 introduces ties. So we can tie our subdivisions, which gives us a bit of displacement of the beat or syncopation. 10.7, of course, introduces dotted notes, which we've talked about a little bit before. And then 10.8 is just kind of more dotted notes, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at 10.6, okay? So we don't start on beat 1. We start on the and of beat 2, okay? It's a pickup, of course, okay? So if we're going this tempo, this is our quarter note, okay? Let's go ahead and try this out. Ready? Let's go ahead and clap along with me. We'll go ahead and clap out the rhythm. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, so hopefully that was a piece of cake for you. Remember that, of course, ties are just bridging 2 notes together. If there was pitch involved, they wouldn't change pitch. In this particular context, it's entirely just duration. So we can treat, for our clapping purposes, as if that downbeat of beat 2, for instance, that 2 doesn't really exist, okay? Remember that we can clap these or we could count these, okay? So what I'm going to go ahead and do, let's take a look at 10.7. I'm going to go ahead and clap every beat, and I want you to count along with me, okay? It doesn't have to be on a pitch. It can just be kind of chants, whatever. Notice we've got dotted rhythms. For our dotted rhythms here, notice that if we have an 8th note with a dot, that's the duration of 3 16th notes. So it's like 1 E and, all under 1, and then that leaves at the end. So it would be 2, 2, 2, 2, and so on, okay? So take a look at 10.7. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clap us in. I'll give us 6 beats. I'm going to clap every beat, and I want you to count out loud. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, ready, go. Okay, so hopefully that went well for you. Remember, this is a video, of course, so you can always go back and do this again, but that should be probably a piece of cake, okay? Let's do, for 10.8, I'm going to go ahead and clap the downbeats again, or just every beat. You could feel free to clap the rhythm or count the rhythm. In any case, I will just be giving you 1 and 2. It's your job to fill in the rests, okay? So take a look at 10.8. Let's try it out. I'll give you 4, and you're in. You're not on the downbeat, though, so take note of where you should enter. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, so that's basically what we're going to do for simple time today. This can get a bit more complicated, but for right now, let's just keep it at that, okay? Let's go ahead and move on to compound time now, okay? So compound time, remember that simple time is where we have beats that are organized into 2s, okay? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Compound time is beats organized into groups of 3. So remember that our counting for that was 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 1 lolly, 2 lolly, or whatever. You could also do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but then you have to keep track of where the beats are mentally. The beats are on 1 and 4. Okay, whatever counting system, we're going to go ahead and use the lolly system today so we can see where our beats are, but feel free to use whatever works for you. Okay, so here's a similar graph that we saw for simple time, although in this case, this is 1 beat of compound time. So notice that it's more rhythmically active because we're starting with more divisions. That thus means that we have more subdivisions. So in this case, we've divided our beats into 3s before. Now we're going to divide them into 6s, okay? Compound time is a little more complicated because with our counting system as we have it, instead of 1e and where each one is kind of a different 16th note placement, in this particular case, we're filling in all the spaces with ta. So if our beats are 1, 2, 3, 4, and before we had 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, now we can fill in the gaps with ta, okay, to get us to 6. So 1 ta la talita, 2 ta la talita, 3 ta la talita, okay? Feel free not to go that fast. Let's go ahead and do it slowly. 1 ta la talita, 2 ta la talita, and so on. It's a little bit of a trick at first, but eventually it will become kind of second nature. So that's how we count the subdivisions. When you're doing this on paper, for instance, you could just do T's for all of those. So you could do 1, T, la, T, li, T, and so on, as in like the letter T. But in any case, that's the general counting pattern, okay? So let's take a look at this with notation again, like we did before. So here we go. This is examples taken from Rogers and Ottman of different possibilities for rhythm in 6/8 and in 6/4, okay? So let's focus on the 6/8 column. This is the left column. So you see at the top our beats, our divisions, and our subdivisions. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Gets a little fast. You can, of course, go slower, okay? So this means that we have a lot more possibilities for subdivisions because we have 6 subdivisions to worry about instead of 4 for simple time. So compound's going to be a little bit more involved inherently, as you can see here. Let's go ahead and take a look at line 4. So in 4, 1 and its ta are kind of subsumed under that 8th note. So we have 1, pardon me, I just spaced a bit. 1, la ta lita, 1, la ta lita, 1, la ta lita, and so on, okay? So 1, la ta lita, 2, la ta lita. Sorry, getting tongue-tied, see? In any case, as long as you can clap it and as long as you can confidently keep the rhythm going, not a big deal. So 5 is the inverse of that, where li and its ta have been subsumed under 1. Okay, in example 6, we've got 1 la lita. Okay, we've only split up the last note in 2. The first 2 stay the same. 7 and 8 are other combinations of that. So notice how kind of 4 and 5 are pairs, and 6, 7, and 8 are kind of triplets of sorts. 9 is tricky because la is completely combined under a quarter note. So be careful because in this case, this looks like it's more than a beat, but it's actually not. Okay, so the quarter note and the 2 16th notes is all just 1 beat, and that's what gets really tricky about compound time at subdivisions, is because it can kind of deceive you visually. So 1 la, pardon me, ready? It's li, okay? It's 1 lita. So this is number 9. 1 lita, 1 lita, 1 lita, 1, and so on. Okay, 10 we've got a dotted rhythm. Okay, so notice that we've got 1 and its ta and la all under 1, and then now ta and then goes to li. So if we're going 1 la li, 2 la li, 1 ta li, 1 ta li, 1 ta li, and so on. That's how you would count that. 11 is the same type of deal as 10, although we've split up li into its ta. So 1 ta li ta, 1 ta lita, and I'm clapping the divisions here. I'm clapping the 8th notes, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. The right column, you can see all of these rhythms map over to 6/4. However, though, remember that we never beam quarter notes because then they look like 8th notes, of course. So notice how 6/4 is a lot more complicated because your beat really gets lost. So if you're ever doing this on as like a practice, if you're practicing it, writing out the counting, or if you're doing a sight singing and you have a second, you can go ahead and bracket where the beats are. That'll really help you kind of organize things, because the more subdivisions that we add and the weirder time signatures we get, the more complicated this is, okay? So let's do some examples. So here we go. This one looks Again, it looks more complicated than it is because of the 16th notes, but it's actually not that bad, okay? So we start off right on the downbeat with our divisions, a beat of divisions, then we do a beat of subdivisions, okay? The next measure, we've got a combination of both, and then so on, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and provide the counting for you here. You can see where this is probably going, okay? So we start off with 1 la li, 1 ta la ta li ta, 1 la ta li ta, right? Because 1's ta in that second measure is subsumed under the 8th note. 2 li, which we've had before, that's a common rhythm we've seen before, and then so on, okay? So let's go ahead and clap this out, clap the rhythm along with me, okay, ready? So this is going to be the division, okay? So here would be the beat, 2, 3, boom, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and clap us in on the division. I'm going to give us 6, and we're in, ready? 1, 2, 3, clap with li. 1, la, li. 1 ta la ta li ta 1 la ta li ta 2 li 1 ta la ta li 2 la li 1 ta la ta li 2, okay, and so on. That's a great tempo to do these. These don't have to be rapid fire quite yet. I mean, it's something that you could aspire towards, but especially at the beginning, it's more that you have accuracy more so than you have fast tempi, okay? So let's do some more examples, okay? Here's one in 12/8, so our measures are bigger now. Let's go ahead and try counting this one, okay? So I counted along with you for the last one. Try counting this one, please. So 1 la li, 1 ta la ta li ta, and so on, okay? I'm going to go ahead and clap the beat for you, not the division, the beat, okay? So this is going to be our beat, okay? I'm going to give you 4 and we're in. Ready? 1, 2, 3, la, li, go. La, li. Okay, good. So that should have gotten you to the end. Hopefully you were with me. If not, feel free to go back and try this again. Okay, let's take a look at 10.38, the final one. So this one, we don't start on the downbeat. We start on the li of the beat before the downbeat, the li of beat 2, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and count us and clap along this time with the division. I want you to, again, count along, please. Count along. If you want to count and clap, that's a great skill to practice, but count along with me, please. I'm going to go ahead and give you 5 divisions, and you're in on 6. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so hopefully that was a piece of cake for you. Again, these can get far more complicated, but for right now I just wanted to keep it to the basics, and we'll kind of build from here, okay? So, wrapping this up, let's go ahead and talk about some things to practice. So, if you're not particularly rhythmically savvy, practice writing in the counting first. So pick anyone's randomly in your Rodgers and Ottman and go ahead and write in the counting for it. Then, once you feel more comfortable doing it the long way, practice only writing in spots that get particularly tricky, parts that have ties or dots or where the rhythm gets really complicated. And then eventually, you want to practice completely sight reading the rhythm, so not adding any sort of writing of any kind, okay? So, as you get better at this, look through the chapter for examples with heavy syncopation, dots, ties. I've given you some examples here. So 10.17 and 10.18 are pretty good for simple time. 10.51 and 10.54 are pretty good examples for compound time. Again, I'll be assigning you some to send me in later, but in the meantime, you can go ahead and practice these, okay? And in addition, we only talked about the more common time signatures today. We stuck with 4/4, 2/4, 3/4, and then 6/8, 12/8, 9/8. But go ahead, once you're comfortable, and practice the odder ones. So practice 4/8, where the 16th note, where the 8th note gets the beat, or 4/16, where the 16th note gets the beat. In that case, the subdivision's at the 64th note. Really complicated, but if you can do that, you can do anything, especially if it's simpler. Same thing goes for our compound time signatures. So practicing 6/4 would be good because the beats get obscured, or practicing 9/16, for example, would be good because in that case, your subdivisions are 32nd notes. So gets kind of tricky. But in any case, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. We can set up a digital office hour. I can answer any questions for you. And I'll let you know what assignment you're going to have for this week as far as singing goes. The next time we're going to go ahead and talk about dictation and do some more practice of singing. And I also want to introduce some pitch. So we'll be doing some rhythmic dictation that you're not required to do the pitch for, but we need to make sure that we're still listening for pitch. Hopefully it hasn't been too long of a spring break. So in any case, that concludes it for this time. If you have any questions, just let me know.